Hi, everyone. My name is Artha Jonassaint. I'm 20 years old, and I am a rising sophomore at Harvard College studying government and global health and health policies. Long term, I hope to attend law school and then pursue a career in which I contribute to more equitable food and health systems in the United States. I'm from Okeechobee, Florida, and I'll be here for a while because we will not be heading back to campus because of the coronavirus pandemic. But I'm really excited about that and to re-engage with my hometown and stay connected to my roots. Before matriculating at Harvard, I was the Florida FFA State President. The FFA is just this really robust organization that engages young people and students with the agriculture industry through leadership opportunities and their education happening in their classrooms. I am of Haitian descent. My parents emigrated from Haiti to the US in the 80s, and then they got their family started right here in sunny South Florida. And I am just so excited to be a part of the Florida food policy team this year. My interest in food policy started in high school. I was enrolled in agricultural education courses, and I was also a member of FFA, which stands for Future Farmers of America. However, that organization kind of has morphed into the National FFA organization to reflect that the members of our organization become more than just farmers. My involvement within that organization, coupled with my course load in high school, revealed a passion and affinity for our food system. And I always thought it was baffling that we grow so much food in the United States, we grow so much food across the globe, yet people don't have access to that food. Sometimes it's not affordable, sometimes they don't have cars to get to that food. And I thought that policy was the best way to solve those kinds of issues. And I also had a natural affinity for the legislative process. I really liked government, and I remember being in my seventh grade civics class and so engaged in everything that we were learning then. And that's carried me all the way through my career throughout the FFA and in college. And that's really what led me to the Florida Food Policy Council as well. There's so many topics that I find so enticing and so exciting about food policy, but I think something that I've learned recently that has really stuck with me is something called a food swamp. And talk a lot about food deserts and people not having access to healthy foods or a grocery store or a farmer's market. But there's also people who live in a food desert, but that's also a food swamp. So while they may not have access to a farmer's market or a grocery store, they have access to McDonald's and Papa John's and all of these really saturated fat, fatty foods that make it hard for people to get the nutrients that they need for a healthy diet. And I think it's just so crazy that these food swamps often are rural areas, areas like Okeechobee, and they also are in the inner city. So with that, you see different demographics disproportionately affected by having access to only exclusively unhealthy foods. So whether that's low income people, people of color, indigenous people, they don't have the same access to healthy foods. And that is just so unfair. And it's something that we can totally solve as long as we're working together. One of my favorite current projects is something that I did very recently, and it had to do with urban agriculture and with it growing food within localities and what that looks like. And for me, that was super interesting to see just how much power our local governments have in giving zoning ordinances and what can happen where. Like building a community garden isn't such a streamlined process. If you're going to sell food for profit, there are certain things and obstacles and hoops that you have to jump through in order to make that happen. So I thought that was very, very interesting because in the state of Florida alone, there are 67 different counties, meaning there's 67 different rules of the land that someone has to understand depending on where they are. So I thought that was really, really interesting. And it's something that I really enjoyed working on because I didn't know a lot about it going into the project. And another project that I really liked, I know I was only supposed to talk about one, but I really, really am engaged in social media. I'm almost always on my phone or my computer. So it was really cool to get started the Florida Food Policy LinkedIn page and being able to connect on that and seeing all of the great articles that are shared on LinkedIn. I think the first step to getting young people engaged in food policy, in agriculture, in accessibility, all of these kinds of issues is letting them know that it is an issue that is of relevance to their life. I really didn't know how food policy affected me until I was in high school and I realized that free and reduced lunch is something that is a part of a government program and that people in my class had access to food every single day because of something the government put in place in regard to food policy. So I think first and foremost, agriculturalists, policymakers, lobbyists, whomever is a stakeholder within the food industry, we just have to do a better job of letting people know that food affects their life, it affects their families, it affects their friends. And once they know that it's an issue, then it's really easy to get them involved. I mean, we can see just how incredible the younger generation of people are in wielding change and fighting for what's right. So when they know that there's something that isn't right, it's easier for us to come together, to go in the streets, to lobby, to go advocate for ourselves to our congress people about these issues. So I think what the first problem is that we don't know it's a problem. And once we know that that can happen, then we can do a better job of rallying together with stakeholders in the food industry. And we've done it for so many different issues. Young people are leading the charge in gun reform and all and so many other industries within our country. So here we are with the food industry. And I think as soon as people see that light turn on, we can see change and get young people involved. So my hope for the future, I'm just going to be bold and say that I want to see food insecurity eradicated. There's just no excuse that every single person does not have access to an affordable, safe, abundant, and healthy food supply. And I think we can get there. I think we need as many hands on deck as possible, as many allies, as many people actively fighting that fight. But that is something that I want to see for the future. And in a similar vein, I would love to see more people of color, more Black people, more Indigenous people re engaging in agriculture. So many of our agricultural practices when this country was incepted to now are because of the formative work that those groups of people put into our country, into our agriculture industry. And whether that's land redistribution or other kind of policies to ensure that they get back to their roots in growing food for this country, I would love to see just more people who were once involved in agriculture come back. And I think with that comes going to schools, telling students that agriculture is relevant, it's fun, it's fresh, and we need all kinds of people in all kinds of places to be engaged. So a more diverse agricultural sector more generally, as well as an eradication to food insecurity would be my two hopes for the future.